All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Nathan, and this is my wonderful co-presenter, Rebecca. We will be running through this Sharing Your Engineering Story webinar together with you. Just in case you didn't join us for our first webinar, we're just going to give you a brief explanation of who we are and what we do as an organization.
Great. So we are Engineers of Tomorrow, and we are a nationally incorporated not-for-profit. We partner with engineering companies, professional associations, and educators to transform the engineering profession. We want to teach the ability to learn from failure, to innovate, and to solve the most important problems of our century. We believe in the power of engineering outreach and that it will shape the future of the profession. This is why we have partnered with you all as engineers to inspire and give exposure about what it means to be an engineer to the next generation.
Great. Our vision is that one day every Canadian understands the power of engineering to unlock and shape positive societal change. So now we will also reintroduce the team behind Engineers of Tomorrow. On the slide, you will see our founder, Erica Lee Garcia, our CEO, Rebecca White, who is the main person who you will hear from throughout the school year. Beside them, you will see myself and Rebecca Fanoli. We are summer co-op students from the University of Waterloo and the University of Guelph, respectively. We'll start off this presentation by each sharing our own engineering stories.
Great. So from a young age, I was always curious about my surroundings and building different structures from anything around. I always was fascinated by outer space. I loved construction, and I loved just kind of tinkering with anything I could find. Without certain people in my life, I never would have known that these qualities may have hinted that engineering would be a good fit for me. I was always good at math and science, and I had a huge passion for the protection of the environment. I remember taking garbage bags with me to the park when I went with my grandpa to pick up litter, being fascinated by the Earth Rangers that I saw on TV, and just in general, kind of caring about the impact that I had on the environment. So due to this passion, I decided to apply to the environmental engineering program at Guelph, and I got in. After a year and a half, I realized that I really enjoyed my designing and manufacturing courses, and I would want to be a part of a team that is designing and bringing to life new sustainable solutions to be used in everyday life that help protect our environment. Like I said, the designing courses really drew me in. As you can see on the screen there, that purple elephant was a project from my second year course. Due to this fascination, I decided to switch from environmental engineering to the sustainable stream of mechanical engineering. Now I am happily in the mechanical engineering program at U of G, and I'm excited to see what my future holds.
Great. So for my story, growing up, I loved tinkering with machines and electronics. I especially loved late evenings watching planes fly over the Toronto Pearson Airport. I love building and designing things. I have mounds of drawings of planes and spaceships from when I was a kid, and I began to grow a liking for illustration and art as well. When time came to apply for university, I thought picking engineering meant dropping many of my other hobbies and passions such as illustration. But little did I know that was not true at all. All of us are liminal people, and I saw my two worlds of art and engineering come together during my first year of mechanical engineering. Taking my passion for engineering, design, and art, I was able to develop concepts for machines and solutions through freehand sketches, which later became full projects. Today, I'm a freelance illustrator and artist working on commissions, as well as a mechanical engineering student finding middle ground between my work. This is why it is so important for our engineering community to be inclusive and open to everyone and their stories, because we all are unique in our own way. Of course, here is shown a great sketch from the great Leonardo da Vinci, who is also an artist and engineer. As well, you have an F-15 I sketched quickly a few days ago and some process sketches for a simple phone stand I made not too long ago. One of the reasons why I love engineering is because of how multidisciplinary, explorative, and creative it is. So each of our engineering stories are powerful in that they are each very unique.
Yeah, so hopefully hearing a little bit of our stories will help you as we go through the rest of this webinar, and you'll be able to reflect on your story as well and see how you might be able to share with the students. The goal of engineering storytelling is not always to recruit new students into engineering, as there will always be students within the classroom you go into who are disinterested in the career as they get older. But with these students, you will still be giving them a different connection through the classroom and giving them more exposure to different career options, as well as enriching their science curriculum. Telling your story can help break or challenge stereotypes by exposing the engineering profession. If you share your story and it's not what a student necessarily thinks an engineer is, the story still broadens their thoughts and what they think an engineer can be. We hope it will help demystify and remove possible intimidation factors when looking at the profession.
The benefits of telling your engineering story, both for yourself and for others, is that storytelling is a great way of sending a message, as a lot more information is easily retained because people will emotionally connect with what you're saying. An effective storyteller will do self-reflection and learn new things about themselves and their career, and this new perspective can be valuable. When you're thinking about how you want to tell your story, especially in the context of engineering, it can be very helpful to think through and process what your goals were then and are now, why you are pursuing engineering, and to refocus yourself and kind of really understand or remember the underlying reasons of going into engineering and why you chose to pursue it.
Great. Yeah, we are introducing you to engineering storytelling because we would like you to use it during your engineer in residence classroom visits to engage the students. Other places where we would encourage you to tell your engineering story are youth workshops and National Engineering Month events. You can even share them in your own youth work volunteer, such as Girl Guides, Boy Scouts, and even coaching a sport. You can share your story anywhere you're working with young people, especially with those you may think don't necessarily know what engineering is. You can also practice with your fellow students if you're an engineering student, or you can share with your fellow engineers in the workplace.
Now we're going to walk you through a bit of how you can build your engineering story. We'll provide some prompts, some tips, and some do's and don'ts to help you as you start reflecting and putting together your engineering story. Really look into your past. You don't always need to know what you're looking for until you find it. Think about how to tell your story, look to your experiences throughout your life and what may have led to certain decisions down the road. When you're talking to young people, you may say something that they can relate to without even knowing it. So try to include some small particular details here and there throughout your story. These details will help you create an effective story. Do your best to lead with your human story and not your credentials. The goal is not to make yourself impressive, but rather to make yourself relatable and accessible, especially to a younger audience. Remember to cater to the grade level that you are speaking to as well. If it is a younger grade, try to use simple language and concepts. But if your students are older, you could give more details and higher end thinking.
Great. So a great tool to use is a story map. The first step is identifying yourself to say, my name is, and I am a ... And then to have a descriptor and include something that you're proud or passionate about. You could mention any achievements you have or anything else you think might introduce yourself well. This is a great first impression and way to start your story, and you can think about your past. You can use language like, ever since I was little, I have loved, I have been fascinated by, I wanted to know more about, or one of my favorite memories was. And this could be something specific, like how I brought up the memory of myself and my grandpa going to the park. Although it was a smaller detail, it still impacted my engineering story, and I'm sure you all have things to share from your experiences as well. Try to unpack your reasons and think about why you're an engineer. You could simply say, I chose to be an engineer because, or you could talk about your path to finding engineering. For example, when I was younger, I thought I wanted to be a mathematician, but I realized, blank, and that led me to choose engineering. You could even share some of your fears and challenges along the way. Something along the lines of, I used to worry about that, or I used to worry that, but now I know, and kind of give your reasons as to why that changed. Now that you are in engineering, you could talk about your hopes for the future and what you want to accomplish. Or if you have finished your engineering path, you could talk about what you accomplished throughout your career. Some students may relate to this and start thinking about problems or areas of improvement they want to see in the future. A great way you could end your stories is finishing with a piece of advice that you may have for the students as they move forward throughout their school year. Remember, they are looking up to you as a mentor, so hearing what you offer as advice is often very interesting to them. It could be a reiteration of something that you said earlier, or something that you learned that you can now share with students and really talk to them at their level. Remind them that you were once a student as well, trying to figure out what you wanted to do.
Yeah, so you don't need to use all of these prompts. They are simply now tools and starters that you can play around with and reflect and change your story, adopting for whatever works best for you and your story. Over time, you'll develop a different story and you might change that depending on who you're talking to, but these prompts can be a really good place to start. We're hoping that these stories will also help to break down stereotypes surrounding engineers by displaying that anyone can be an engineer. You don't necessarily need to be a great problem solver or be really good at math or science. We have a couple specific do's and don'ts that we wanted to mention. When you're storytelling, try to tell your story with enthusiasm and emotion, as it can be much more engaging than simply reading your story from script. Try to make eye contact and engage your voice. Being descriptive is important if you want people to be able to really visualize the story and feel connected with it. Adding in some details is always good. However, do your best to keep it concise, aiming to be around 3 to 5 minutes. You don't want it to be much longer than that, as students will likely lose focus.
If you're explaining who you are, try and explain what it is you do. For example, if you state that you are a chemical engineer, this can mean very little to your students. But to engage them, try and explain that you work on different foods or medications through the application of chemistry, physics, math, etc.
Try not to tell your story as if it's a business presentation. You're trying to get a positive engagement and an emotional response. To do that, you need to be personal. Avoid having many details or plot lines that don't progress the story. Kids consume enough content these days as it is. Build your plan and try to stick to it. And finally, please don't stress. It can be nerve-wracking to be vulnerable, especially in front of a group of kids. But that also means it's the most rewarding.
Here are some sources of inspiration that we recommend to craft your own engineering story. If you are stuck or want feedback, reach out to Erin Rogers. She's a great storyteller, and she has also worked with our volunteers in the past to help them build their engineering stories. If you are interested, please reach out to us and we can get you connected. As well, give the Moth Radio Hour a visit. See behind-the-scenes images and listen to storytelling interviews here. Our YouTube channel has pre-recorded webinars you can tap into. Finally, connect with the EIR community through LinkedIn. We would love for you to share your experience with us and your story. You can also drop by to listen to other engineers and their stories.
All right, next we'll talk about the lovely template that we have put together for you to help draft your engineering story. You can visit EIR.ca and click on our Resources tab. Under our Resources, we have a printable storyboard that you can download and use to help you. You can also access it through the link here on the slide.
Now we just have a little bit of homework. This will help you with your engineering story and getting connected. Start by filling out your storyboard, which will help you to tell your engineering story why you became an engineer, and what kind of engineer you are. Make sure you are registered for our next training session on diversity and inclusion. And lastly, introduce yourself. Pop by our LinkedIn group, EIR group, and say hello. Send an introduction email to your EIR match.
All right, now we're just going to have a quick Q&A period. Please feel free to send a question in chat or unmute your mic and ask. We will try to answer all of your questions. Great, so I don't think we have many questions for us at this time. However, I will add a question of my own. A lot of the times engineers tell us that they might be a little nervous in telling their engineering story, and they might need some help doing so. So to kind of combat this, a lot of the times we tell our engineers that well, these kids are humans as well, and they've gone through their own experiences. And sharing and being a little vulnerable just makes you that much more of a human and a figure that they can look up to, especially when you tell them about certain life stories and mistakes that you've made, even that you've learned from. It really shows them that an engineer is a human as well, and we do all make mistakes. All right, in that case, if no one else has any questions, I think we'll conclude it here. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to send either of us an email and we'd be happy to help you. And yeah, thanks everyone. Please check out our social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And don't forget about our blog posts on our website where we share important updates. As well, just as a note, the slides and the recordings of our presentations are posted on our website under our resources tab during the remainder of each week. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everybody. And like Nathan said, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to send us an email.